My wedding day was supposed to be the happiest moment of my life. Instead, it became a scene of chaos and humiliation orchestrated by my fiancé's mother. She seemed determined to sabotage my marriage, but when her plan failed, her frustration erupted in a shocking act that left everyone stunned. It all began when I met James, a 29-year-old project manager, at a cafe during my lunch break in Dallas, Texas. I accidentally spilled coffee on his shirt while juggling my tray, and instead of being annoyed, he laughed it off with a warm and kind demeanor. That moment sparked a connection that grew over time. He started visiting the cafe regularly, hoping to see me again, and eventually asked me out. Our first date was simple but perfect, and over the following months, we built a strong bond. For the first time, I could envision a future with someone. After 6 months of dating, James decided it was time for me to meet his mother, Aurora. Though he spoke highly of her, I sensed an underlying hesitation whenever we discussed it. Aurora lived in a quiet, upscale neighborhood in Houston, Texas. She greeted us at the door with a cool and measured demeanor, her sharp eyes assessing me thoroughly. Our initial interaction was polite but distant, with Aurora's subtle disapproval palpable. Throughout our visit, she asked pointed questions about my job and background, each laced with judgment. Despite my efforts to remain composed, I left feeling drained and discouraged. James reassured me that she just needed time to come around. However, her disapproval lingered like a shadow over our relationship. When James decided to propose, he had a frank discussion with his mother, standing his ground against her reservations. Aurora reluctantly agreed not to interfere, though she made her disapproval clear. James proposed to me the following weekend in the most heartfelt way, and I said yes without hesitation. On the morning of our wedding in Austin, Texas, I was filled with excitement despite my lingering nervousness about Aurora. The ceremony venue was beautifully decorated, and everything seemed perfect. However, during the reception, Aurora created a deliberate scene. She criticized everything from the seating arrangements to the food, making it clear to everyone that she disapproved of me. When her words failed to ruin the day, she resorted to an act that stunned the entire room. She pulled out a spray bottle and sprayed me directly in the face with a liquid that caused unbearable pain. I gasped in shock, my eyes burning, and stumbled backward. The room fell silent as guests rushed to my side, horrified. James immediately confronted his mother, demanding to know what she had done. Aurora, red with rage, tried to justify her actions, claiming she was protecting her son. Her behavior shocked everyone, and James made it clear that her actions were unacceptable. He publicly defended me, standing by my side and denouncing her behavior. Though that day was marred by Aurora's actions, it also marked a turning point. James's unwavering support and the love of our friends and family reinforced my decision to marry him. I realized that no obstacle could diminish our bond or the strength I found within myself to stand tall against adversity. Despite the pain Aurora caused, the day remained a celebration of love, resilience, and the beginning of a new chapter in my life. James and I had planned a small, intimate wedding with close family and friends. As I got ready in the bridal suite, I couldn't shake the feeling of unease about his mother, Aurora. Despite her initial reluctance, she had agreed to attend. I tried to reassure myself that her opinion didn't matter, as long as James and I were together. Deep down, though, I feared she might cause trouble, and my fears turned out to be justified. The reception was in full swing, a joyous celebration of our union, until Aurora approached the table where monetary gifts were collected. She picked up the small box and began inspecting it in front of everyone. "These are all the monetary gifts?" she asked loudly, her voice cutting through the happy chatter. James and I exchanged confused glances. "Yes, Mom," he replied. "Why?" She fixed me with a sharp, disapproving stare. "Traditionally, all monetary gifts from the wedding belong to the groom's family. It's a sign of respect for the family that raised him." I blinked in disbelief. "Aurora, that's not how we planned it. The money is for James and me to build our future together." Her expression hardened. "That's not how it works in our family," she said coldly. You're marrying into the Davids, and you should respect our traditions. This $20,000 isn't yours." Her words carried through the room, drawing the attention of our guests. My cheeks flushed with embarrassment, but I stood my ground. "With all due respect, Aurora," I said, keeping my voice steady, "these gifts were given to us as a couple. James and I will decide how to use them." James stepped forward, his arm protectively around me. "Mom, let it go. This is our day, and the gifts are for us. Please don't ruin this moment." Aurora's face contorted with anger. Then, to everyone's shock, she pulled a small spray bottle from her bag. "You think you can take what's mine and walk away?" she snapped. Before anyone could react, she sprayed the contents directly at my face. A sharp, burning sensation spread across my skin and eyes. I stumbled backward, gasping in pain as my face reddened and swelled. Tears streamed down my cheeks as the agony became unbearable. James caught me before I could fall. "What the hell is wrong with you, Mom?" he shouted, his voice filled with panic and fury. Aurora stood frozen, the spray bottle still in her hand. Guests rushed to help, but James was already guiding me toward the exit. "This isn't over," he said to her, his voice cold. "You'll pay for this." At the hospital, doctors quickly treated me, applying ointments to reduce the swelling and pain. "You're experiencing a severe allergic reaction," the doctor explained. "We'll give you medication, but you'll need to rest for a few days." James sat beside me, his face a mix of anger and worry. "Who does this, Lily?" he muttered. "Who hurts someone on their wedding day?" When the police arrived to take our statements, I recounted the events in detail, trembling as I described how Aurora escalated a simple argument over wedding gifts into an outright attack. James supported me, providing his account along with testimonies from the guests who had witnessed everything. The officers assured us they would investigate and collect the spray bottle as evidence. The next day, the police informed us that Aurora had been questioned. She tried to downplay the incident as a misunderstanding, but the evidence was overwhelming. Her actions were deliberate, and she was charged with assault with intent to cause harm. A week later, Aurora appeared in court. Testimonies from the guests, the spray bottle containing the harmful substance, and medical reports documenting my injuries painted a clear picture. The judge addressed her sternly. This was not a family dispute, it was a calculated act of harm meant to inflict pain and humiliation. Aurora was found guilty. Though the ordeal left me shaken, there was a sense of relief knowing justice had been served. It was a difficult start to our marriage, but James and I stood together, stronger than ever, ready to move forward into a future built on love and resilience. Aurora was sentenced to 6 months in prison and fined $110,000 for the damages she caused. The judge also issued a restraining order, prohibiting her from contacting me or attending any future family events without prior consent. As she faced the consequences of her actions, I focused on healing, both physically and emotionally. The swelling on my face gradually reduced, but the emotional scars took longer to heal. James was my rock throughout this time, constantly reassuring me. One evening, as we sat together on the couch, he took my hand and said, "You're stronger than you think, Lily. We've been through so much, but we're still standing. I'll always protect you, no matter what." His unwavering support reminded me why I had fallen in love with him. Despite the chaos surrounding our wedding, we decided to move forward. A month after Aurora's sentencing, we held a small, private ceremony with only our closest friends and family. It was simple yet beautiful, everything our first wedding should have been. As we exchanged vows, I felt a sense of closure. The pain and humiliation Aurora had caused no longer defined us. We were stronger and ready to start a new chapter together. Months turned into a year, and life settled into a beautiful rhythm. Our private ceremony gave us the fresh start we needed, allowing us to focus on building our future. I even began volunteering with an advocacy group, sharing my story to help others. For the first time in a long while, I felt truly at peace. But that peace was tested when James received a letter one afternoon. He walked into the living room, holding the envelope with a mix of confusion and tension on his face. "It's from my mom," he said, sitting down beside me. I froze. Aurora. It had been a year since her sentencing, and during that time, we had no contact with her. Her absence had allowed us to heal. The memory of her actions still haunted me, the sting of the spray and the humiliation she caused on what should have been the happiest day of my life. "What does she want?" I asked cautiously. James opened the letter and read it silently before handing it to me. Aurora had written about her regret, claiming she had reflected on her actions while in prison. She apologized, saying, "I now realize how wrong I was and deeply regret the pain I caused you both. I want to make amends and hope to be part of your lives again." I looked at James. "Do you think she's serious?" He sighed, rubbing his temples. "I don't know. This doesn't erase what she did, Lily. But she's still my mom. I don't know if I can just ignore her." The letter left us both conflicted. James wanted to believe his mother had changed, but I couldn't forget the pain she caused. Her actions still cast a long shadow over our lives. For days, we debated whether to respond. "I don't want her to hurt us again," I said one evening, my voice trembling. "But I also don't want to be the reason you lose your mother forever." James nodded, his eyes filled with empathy. "I understand. But if there's even a chance she's genuine, maybe it's worth giving her a chance, not for her, but for us." Finally, we agreed to meet her, but on our terms. I insisted it take place in a neutral, public location with clear boundaries set beforehand. We met Aurora at a quiet cafe in the heart of the city. She looked different, less composed. Her once flawless appearance had softened, reflecting the passage of time and her experiences. When she saw us, she stood nervously, her hands clasped together. "Lily, James," she began, her voice trembling. "Thank you for agreeing to meet me." We sat down, and for a moment, there was only silence. Then Aurora spoke. "I know I can't undo what I did," she said, her eyes welling with tears. "I was blinded by my pride and my insecurities. I lashed out at you, Lily, because I felt." Her voice broke, and she paused to gather herself. I watched her carefully, unsure whether to believe her words. "Because I felt like I was losing my son," she continued. "I see now how wrong I was. My actions were unforgivable, and I don't expect you to forgive me. But I want to try to make things right, if you'll let me." James reached for my hand under the table, his grip steady and reassuring. I took a deep breath. "Aurora, your actions hurt me deeply," I said, my voice steady. "It will take time to rebuild trust, if that's even possible. But for James's sake, I'm willing to start with small steps." Aurora nodded, tears streaming down her face. "Thank you," she whispered. "I'll do whatever it takes." That day marked the beginning of a cautious reconciliation. It wasn't easy, and it wasn't quick, but with time, Aurora began to show genuine remorse and a willingness to change. For James and me, it was a step toward healing, not just for us, but for the fractured family we hoped to rebuild. Aurora's words caught me off guard. "I was losing my son," she said, her voice trembling. "But I see now how wrong I was. You're a wonderful woman, and James is lucky to have you." Her tone seemed genuine, but the pain she had caused still lingered, fresh and raw. I looked at her, holding steady. "Aurora," I said firmly, "what you did wasn't just a mistake. You hurt me, physically and emotionally. It's not something I can easily forget." Tears streamed down Aurora's face as she nodded. "I know," she whispered. "I don't expect forgiveness overnight. I just want a chance to show you I can be better." James turned to me, his expression conflicted. This was a moment we hadn't fully prepared for. The decision, whether to let her back into our lives or keep the distance that had brought us peace, rested on me. I took a deep breath, steadying myself. James placed his hand gently over mine, offering silent support. I could see the genuine regret in Aurora's eyes, but I couldn't ignore the scars her actions had left behind. "Aurora," I began, my voice firm but not unkind, "forgiveness isn't something that comes easily. What you did caused so much pain, not just to me, but to James as well. You almost broke us." But, I paused, glancing at James, who gave me a small, encouraging nod. "I'm willing to give you a chance to prove yourself. That doesn't mean everything is forgotten, but it means we're willing to start somewhere." I added, "On one condition, there will be clear boundaries. If you ever disrespect or hurt us again, there will be no second chances." Aurora wiped her tears with trembling hands, nodding vigorously. "Thank you, Lily. I promise I'll do everything I can to make this right." The months following that meeting were cautious yet hopeful. Aurora respected the boundaries we set, keeping her interactions light and infrequent. She wrote heartfelt letters of apology, not just to me but also to James, acknowledging the hurt she had caused. She even sought therapy to address her underlying issues, a step James later told me was monumental for her. While I wasn't ready to completely trust her, I began to appreciate her genuine efforts to change. 6 months after Aurora's release, James and I hosted a small dinner to celebrate our first wedding anniversary. It was the first family gathering since the incident, and I hesitated to invite Aurora. But James reassured me she had been on her best behavior and truly wanted to celebrate with us. Aurora arrived with a thoughtful gift, a beautifully crafted scrapbook filled with wedding photos and memories. As she handed it to me, she said quietly, "I know our wedding day didn't go as planned, but I wanted to honor the love you two share." Her gesture brought tears to my eyes. It wasn't perfect, and it didn't erase the past, but it was a step toward healing. Over time, Aurora's continued efforts began to rebuild the fragile relationship between us. While I remained cautious, I started to see glimpses of a different side of her, a woman striving to learn from her mistakes and mend the bonds she had almost destroyed. It wasn't a perfect fairy tale ending, but it was a beginning. James and I grew stronger in our love and partnership. The hardships we faced only deepened our resolve to build a life rooted in respect and kindness. Together, we learned that forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting, it means finding a way to move forward without letting the past define us. Aurora's reconciliation wasn't easy, but it taught me an important lesson: even the deepest wounds can heal with time, effort, and clear boundaries. As James and I looked ahead, we knew we had built something unshakable, a life filled with love, trust, and the resilience to face anything together. Thank you for reading our story, a journey of love, resilience, and forgiveness. Even in the darkest moments, there's always a chance for healing and new beginnings. If you found inspiration in this story, we'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like this post and subscribe for more stories filled with drama, lessons, and hope. Thank you for being part of our community.